Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be joining us in the world. I am Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at SheCanCode. For those tuning in who aren't familiar with us, SheCanCode is a global community with a mission to close the tech gender gap. We use content, marketing, and events to engage, inspire, and attract more diverse communities to the tech sector. We work with companies to promote and showcase themselves to our community in order to attract and retain a more diverse workforce. As you already know, the title of this 40-minute webinar is How to Navigate a Successful Career Transition, and I have three wonderful guests joining me today. Before I introduce our speakers, though, please note that we have a live Q&A session running today, so please submit your questions throughout and we will try and get to them at the end. So on our panel today, I'm excited to introduce Ali Worrell, Head of Post-Trade Technology at GSA Capital, Ailish Dow, Advanced Consultant Data Product at Kubrick Group, and Kate Roberts, Junior Developer at M&S. Hello, everybody on our panel. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to jump straight in because we've only got 40 minutes. So we would love to start with a little overview from each of you about your career journey so far and your transition into tech. So Ailish, let's start with yourself.
Sure. Hi everyone. So I am working at Kubrick now. I joined Kubrick in February of this year, and that would have been what I would call my transition into tech. I did start out in a team that had tech in the name, but I wouldn't have said my role was tech. I was mainly Excel based, same as most roles, I'm sure, and I wouldn't call that tech personally. So I transitioned to Kubrick earlier this year, and they ran a 15-week training program, and then I started on client site May of this year. So that's been my kind of step into the tech world.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Ali, yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. So yeah, for me, I started off in accounting, basically, once I graduated. Wanted to work in sort of finance area, had a bit of exposure to technology during my university course, did like a few things in MATLAB and did a bit of basic Java, but nothing else particularly. So I did like 9 months in an audit firm, basically found that wasn't really for me, and I was more interested in like trying to improve and automate a lot of the day-to-day tasks. I then did a bit of a sideways move to my current firm, where I moved into an operations role. And then, yeah, part of that, again, I found myself spending a lot of time automating things and trying to improve day-to-day processes. And that sort of led me into a full-time tech role within that company.
Lovely, thank you. And Kate, I know you have an interesting story to share as well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I studied maths at university like Ali, and my first job was in financial services regulation. And then I ended up returning to university to study for a PhD, and the end of that coincided with an extended maternity break. And I never really framed it for myself as a transition. It was more a case of carving my own road. So in the maternity break, I had the freedom to take some risks. And I had a moment when I saw how my middle daughter was benefiting from good quality software to support her speech therapy. And that set me off on this, if not me, then who journey of setting up my own startup, developing lifestyle apps for autistic kids. And to do that, I had to teach myself to code, which I did with Udemy courses and YouTube videos. But my motivation was never career development. It was always that next thing that I wanted to make. But slowly it built up some momentum, and I was picked up by Apple to travel to California to take part in Entrepreneur Camp. But the truth of the matter was that I loved making things, but not monetizing them. And all round, I was starting to feel a little bit isolated working on my own. And there was a dude that I pair programmed with who recommended Marks and Spencer's for having a great corporate culture and a commitment to innovation. I was a little bit unsure how it would fit with my family. But in the event, they offered me a part-time contract, which was a complete game changer to open up this world for me. And it's been a year now and I haven't looked back.
Good, that is good to know. Once you moved in, that you found it quite easy to to be welcomed into the tech industry as well, and that it was very flexible for your family, because I think that's something that people worry about when they move from one industry to the other, which moves us on nicely to our next question. Once you've started a career in the tech industry, how easy is it to move around? I think people worry that you have to be very technical to even enter the tech industry, and then once you get in, you have to stay in that department. You can't move around, you can't try new things. Is that the case? Is that something that you've all found yourself? Kate, should we start with you?
I'm not sure what the answer is to this, because I've never really been that strategic in my career. I mean, what's actually happened is that every role that I've had, whatever the job title, it's naturally bent around my skills and interests over time. So my first job was completely non-technical in financial services regulation, but people figured out that I wasn't scared by numbers. So I was getting more and more of those tasks that were feeling techie. Now my role is an engineer, but I'll still sometimes brainstorm copywriting or UX with the team designer. So the job description is the starting point, and then you grow from there.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on the company as well, doesn't it, and how open they are to you trying new things. Even if you don't have a lot of experience, just them being very open to developing their staff and their skills. So Ailish, is this something that you've found yourself once you've been moving around?
Well, my only experience in what I would call the tech industry would be Kubrick, so only since February. But based on what I can see with colleagues and discussions that I had kind of prior to joining Kubrick, Kubrick specifically, like you said, it probably is industry-based or company-based. They're very, very open to being completely flexible. I was worried, and we'll probably touch on that, making that transition into tech. And I think like one of my questions was, well, what happens if I kind of go down this road and I end up not being very good at it or not really enjoying it? Then what? And so I can speak to Kubrick, and I can speak to seeing my colleagues move around. They've been very, very open to kind of taking your time, figuring out what you enjoy, what you like, and moving around within the industry based on what you kind of discover as you learn, and what you like, basically, which has been nice.
Yes, yeah. Do you think that as well comes down to a confidence thing as well, and trying something new, and perhaps it's not something for somebody that is a second jobber maybe, but a little bit further down the line, it's just having that confidence to try something new and think, what, if it doesn't work for me, the tech industry is very flexible anyway, and I can go off and try something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for myself, I wouldn't call myself like overly techie in the sense of what I had as a sort of tech person before I actually moved into tech. And I think it's so broad as well, in that you don't necessarily need to be sitting coding all day to be working in tech. That's not necessarily what it means. There's so many things available to do within tech. So it's been nice to kind of learn that in the process of moving into Kubrick, and to have that kind of space of being, what I would probably have called like involved in tech, but it is actually within the tech industry. And so, kind of that middle ground between a bit of business, a bit of consulting, a bit of tech. And it's opened my eyes to kind of what's actually available.
Yes. Yeah. And Annie, what about yourself in terms of moving around? Have you found that quite easy at all, or have you come up against any challenges along the way?
So within the current company I work at, I've definitely moved around from a non-tech role to a tech role, and that was something that was supported, and there was, a plan to do that. I think nowadays it's definitely becoming more frequent that I'm seeing people do similar things, going both ways really. So people who are working in the tech role, maybe going into more of a project management, and people who are working in, say, a support role, who are maybe not coding day to day, but have got oversight on coding and an interest in it, moving into a sort of full-time or sort of majority time coding role. So it's definitely something I've seen at my company and a few other companies as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the being technical and that thought of I have to be in a coding role to be in tech. And it's funny how people that are not in the tech industry have that view. You know, I have to take a computer science degree, I have to know how to code, I have to become a developer. And then once you're in the tech industry, you realize all of the departments that are available at, you know, a technology company, and you might find yourself as a product manager, and you don't have to be, you know, overly technical, but you do have to know how to work with the user and have the user in mind. So yeah, completely different skills there. Is that did you, I mean, obviously a couple of you studied maths at university, but did you have that thought? Was it, you know, if I have to go into technology, I have to be technically minded? Kate, I know you were an academic, so you already had a certain mindset, but is that what you were thinking before you went into tech? I'm going to have to learn lots of code and be technically minded.
I think the maths did help to give me the confidence that I could do hard things. I think technically minded, people think it means a certain thing, and I think it means something different. So I've got a meme that I love, and it goes, I hate coding, I hate coding, I hate it coding. Oh, it works. I love coding. And I think to be happy and successful in a tech career, you do need those inner resources to support you through the frustrating times when nothing works and you don't know how to fix it. And it happens to every engineer. And you need somewhere to dip into to get through those times, whether that's an inner belief that you're capable, or a support network to go to, or the support network to vent to, or somewhere to go for advice. And I think when people say they're not technically minded, they're not really talking about their skills. They're talking about these resources that they can lean on. And I think not having that does make it harder. So your computer science graduate, they enter the world of work with that I can do it confidence. It's not that they know a particular programming language, that changes all the time and every job requires a different skill set, but it's that I can do it confidence. It's that I belong feeling. It's the friends that can maybe point them in the right direction. And when you're a new entrant, I think it's worth being quite intentional to make yourself more technically minded, whether that's surrounding yourself with other people in technology, or going to meetups, or doing things that increase your confidence. And then the payoff at the end of the meme is the I love coding. And so I think technically minded isn't about knowing specific things, but it's about that joy of solving a puzzle and that pride in delivering a polished product, and, you know, just liking having things arranged just so. So I mean, that would be my definition of technically minded, of having those inner resources and getting joy out of the process.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. And Ailish, you described yourself as non-tech, as a non-techie. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, funnily enough, I also studied maths, which is a weird
running theme.
And yeah, like Alistair, I had like minimal, you know, what you would call tech experience from my degree in MATLAB, like you said, and a little bit of Python, I think we did, but it was very minimal. But I think I agree with Kate in that it's the kind of determination to solve a problem. And even in that, it's the determination to kind of, yeah, have the confidence to just sort of make that jump. If that's what you want to do, then like go for it. And yeah, there'll be learning involved, but there's learning involved in any move in a career. You know, you're never going to step into it. If you're stepping into a role that you already know how to do, you should probably be stepping a little further. So yeah, I think I agree. And I would say even now, I still wouldn't call myself a techie. And I don't think many of my colleagues would, to be honest. And it might be a consultancy thing, in that we've kind of got that little step away from the actual sort of doing the day-to-day coding, etc. But we understand it all, and like you said, we understand the user, and we can, you know, in that understanding, we are actually working in tech. So yeah, I agree. It is definitely down to the sort of determination to solve that problem, I think, in the first place.
Yeah, and Eilish, you mentioned when you moved to Kubrick Group, I suppose as well it's about finding the right company that lets you be who you are and really hones in on your skills and that flexibility, rather than trying to make you into something you're not. Is that something you would agree with? Once you've now found a company where you're allowed to be flexible and try new things, that you can really flourish in a role and not have to be technically minded, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the support within the kind of tech industry that I've found, at least, is amazing. People are always willing to kind of sit down with you and work through a piece of code, do a quick review, and they're the people that will find the missing comma or whatever that you've looked through 100 times and you can't find it. It's the support within the kind of community of techie people is really great as well, really supportive.
Yeah. And Ali, I'm dying to ask you, is there any advice that you would give someone who is considering a career transition, but they're unsure if the tech sector is right for them?
Yeah, so I would say try and speak to people. If you know anyone that works in tech, that would be quite useful. If you don't, then there's lots of sort of day in the life videos that you can find. There's like, maybe look up a tech company, see if they've got any blog posts. I know Monzo, the sort of online bank, had quite a good one a few years ago, where like various people in different roles there, they would do sort of each day of the week what they get up to. Probably spend some time looking at open source software if that's something you can do. See, I don't know, try and find something you're interested in. Do a course like Udemy, a great thing to do. I did one on sort of like learning like how to develop a video game, something I've never done before, and it was just like seeing that from scratch. It's just a really good way, like physically, like doing something yourself. There's nothing better than that, I'd say. That would probably be it. Don't know if there's anything else. There's also other stuff like there's like Makers Academy. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Someone like that who offers sort of longer courses potentially that you could get into.
Yeah, great community as well to stay in touch with afterwards as well, to stay in touch with your cohort. Do you still stay in touch with people that you might have worked on projects with to get started?
Sorry, in terms of
kind of sharing ideas and still staying in touch with certain tech groups or any sort of communities that you're a part of, or that maybe you trained with. You mentioned Udemy was a great resource for you.
Yeah, so there's definitely some open source projects that I contribute to, and there's like, you occasionally speak to people on there. I wouldn't say I speak to any other groups particularly, but yeah, open source projects, there's normally a lot of people who are sort of contributing, and there's a bit of a community around that.
Yeah. And Kate, yourself, I know you're involved in a couple of coding groups that you say, keep your mind going and keep projects moving. Could you share, some of those and maybe some advice for somebody considering a career transition? I suppose having that support of a community might help there.
Yeah, I think having people around you is really important. My top tip for somebody dipping a toe in the water would actually be hackathons. And I'm actually dialing in from a company-wide hackathon today. But before I got this job, like way at the beginning, I did a couple of hackathons, either virtually or in person. And it just really moved on my mental model of what a tech career is. I used to think it was about writing code. And then I learned about how you collaborate on a project. And I got this fast forward snapshot of what tech careers are like. I mean, in terms of communities, my first one was an online one, which started off with this virtual hackathon where we worked like, I think over 3 days, and we collaborated on a project. And it's just such a confidence boost. It just accelerates your learning. And it's such a confidence boost when you realize how much you know. And then there was the Ladies of Code London group, and we used to do this accountability thing. Once a week on Sundays, we'd dial in and we'd work together on our individual projects. what I was saying earlier about having that support network around you, that you can see other people that are having a really frustrating time and you can support them and then they can support you. And it cuts through that isolation that you can have as a beginner. So Ali said, reach out to somebody if you know them. I mean, a lot of people don't have that naturally, and they have to find a meetup, find an event, find a group, and that does build up. And then eventually you have those people that you can bounce ideas from. You can bounce, does this sound like something that would fit me? Or, how can I progress from here? And that's when it starts to flow.
Yes, absolutely. I agree, especially in terms of confidence if you're just starting in tech, and especially if you're working remotely, because I've just seen a question come in. Have any of the panelists worked remotely in their first tech role? Have any of you? So what was any of you work remote? I think Kate, you have worked remotely in your first tech role.
So it's kind of a hybrid. So I live within commuting distance of an office, and I'm in the office right now. But they're very flexible. So there are some weeks when I don't come in at all, which I think is a nice mix. If I'm honest, I think I would have struggled fully remote because you have to be so much more proactive seeking out the mentorship. So when you're sitting next to somebody, it's really easy to lean over and say, I've been sitting here all morning and it's just not compiling and I don't know what to do. When you're remote, you have to be really intentional not to let your pride get in the way of actually reaching out and telling people that you're stuck, because you won't be so visible. So it's possible, but I actually think there are more dangers for a more junior person. They have to be more proactive in going out there and asking for help, or going out there and asking for opportunities.
Yes, yeah. Ailish, what about yourself? Have you worked remotely in your first tech role, or were you already in and went into lockdown? What was your experience?
Again, hybrid. I think, and I think I totally agree with what Kate said. It is easier to just catch somebody for 5 minutes when you're in person. But I do like the hybrid model. And some days you just head down. You don't really need to speak to anybody. You don't need to work with anybody. And that's helpful when you can work from home, no distractions. But yeah, I think I agree in the sense that having people around you, and that sort of touches on what you were just talking about with having a kind of community to support. If you have that community and you have it in an office, then yeah, it's nice to have that support, but it's also probably going to make you slightly more productive in the fact that you can get your queries kind of answered real time, basically. And you don't need to, schedule a call or wait till you're in the office in 2 days' time or that kind of thing. So yeah, I would agree completely.
I think it depends. The problem with office days is you end up talking the whole time. There
There's
are some
also
home days
that.
when I'm more productive because I code. And having said that, I enjoy my office days. The fact that my employer is flexible obviously makes such a big difference with the childcare angle. So there are days that would have been absolutely hideous if I hadn't been able to, at a moment's notice, put on a movie in the other room and just pick up my work. Those are the kind of barriers that in the past used to make work with kids really difficult. And now it's a lot more accepted.
Yes, definitely. I can see a great question that's come in. It says, I'm 41 years old and I'm currently studying full stack engineering. Sometimes I wonder if it is too late. Would you?
42.
Agree? Wait.
42.
and you only recently
year.
trained, didn't you, Kate? So
I started. I mean, I wasn't doing this. Like I said, I was teaching myself of YouTube videos, so I could have done it faster if I'd gone for it full tilt. But yes, before I started doing my own thing, I didn't code at all. So I started from pretty much zero.
Yeah. And anyone else on the team, do you believe it's ever too late to change career or try something new?
No, I don't.
Definitely not. Go ahead, Alistair, sorry.
I think we're both agreeing. I think we're both saying no. No, I don't think it's too late. I think you can pick up any new skills like this. There's not an age barrier to this.
Good, especially in the tech industry. I can see another great question from the audience about mentors, because we spoke a lot about community and support and help from other people to really get to see what life is like in the tech industry. Do any of you have mentors? Have you been lucky enough to have one at any point in your career?
I don't have somebody that would call themselves my mentor, but when I look back, I've certainly had pivot people, and I actually sometimes question myself why these people are so important, because it's almost as if they've given me permission to go to the next step. Like I applied for this job as a direct consequence of pair programming with somebody who said, you look like you'd benefit from joining an organization and you're easily good enough. And I mean, my standard was the same before he'd said that. But the fact that someone had got to know me and had, in a sense, like validated and had cut through the industry for me to say, this particular employer would fit with you, it just took a lot of pressure off me and let me believe in it rather than question myself. And then earlier on, again, when I was quite early in my journey, I got picked up by the Apple program. And again, it was that validation of you belong here, you're welcome. And it was a step change in terms of how much I believed in myself, and hence a step change in how much I invested in myself, and then directly accelerated me the way that if I'd stayed completely on my own, would have taken me much longer to reach the same place.
Yes, yeah. And at SheCanCode on our blog as well, we do regular blogs with lots of tech companies about what it's like to work there, because I think we've all had that experience where you have an interview and then you get into the company and you don't seem to fit, or it's just not what you thought it was going to be. So yes, we try and cover that quite a lot. So when you get in, you do feel welcome, you know what you're going to get from the culture of the company before you even join, so you can start to grow your confidence. We know, obviously, that the industry has a talent shortage. How do we make more roles in tech attractive? Anybody like to try and answer that one? Is there some experience that you've had? I always used to think, how do people that don't work in the tech industry, how do they not know the things that we know, that there are opportunities for great travel experience, the pay is good, it can be flexible, and there are lots of great things about the tech industry that people outside don't seem to know. I think they have sometimes can have a stereotypical view of what it might be like.
I mean, I think talking about it helps. Events like this are great to get the message out there. And personally, I'm genuinely baffled why jobs like teaching and caring are such magnets for working mums, when actually tech is so much more flexible and well paid. So I had my children quite young, and my older children quite young, and all of my choices have been informed by them. I knew that relocation and business travel would be really hard on us. I know that things happen with kids, and sometimes I need to drop everything and just go to them. I know that kids are ruinously expensive, and tech has just been this fantastic pivot for my family, and I'd recommend it to anybody who's looking for well-paid work that doesn't eat their life. And I think the block is that people think it's not for people like me. And to break that down, I think there's a pipeline. You talk about it so that people know that it's there. And then the access programs, like the boot camps, they give people those entry-level skills. And then, like you're saying, mentoring once people get into the industry so that they feel welcome and you get support. And because tech is leaning into the hard skills and delivering product, it's actually intrinsically somewhere where you're judged by what you do, not by what you are. And I think coding disproportionately attracts like a disproportionate number of neurodiverse individuals, And everywhere I've been, the standards for inclusive practice and respectful communication are rock solid, like far better than a lot of industries that would be considered kind of like cuddly and soft. And the things like mental health and work-life balance are deeply baked into the culture of every place I've worked in. So it's an industry that recognizes that talented people are complicated people. So I think this idea that it's, you know, full of bros, full of robots, full of identikit people, it's just not the people that are around me. It's not like that.
Yes, yeah. Ailish, have you experienced anything that you think, you know, anybody outside of tech should really know about transitioning into a career in technology?
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of that it's not quite as scary as it seems, and it's not, you know, in my perception was, you know, only the best and the brightest could possibly get into that kind of career. Like you have to have a certain type of mind to be able to code. You have to you know, be a certain type of person. And I think, first of all, that's just not true. If you are willing to learn, you can learn whatever you want to learn, tech included. And then also the fact that once you get in there, you aren't pigeonholed and you can kind of follow what you're interested in. And it isn't a case of, unless you like this one specific thing, then you can't do tech. It is so wide and varied. That's a kind of key finding that was a kind of game changer for me when I was moving into tech.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can see a great question in there. I think people are wondering as well, if they are about to take the leap, where do they get started? And I can see a question in here about if you were to choose 1 to 2 things that you learned or did before transitioning into tech that would have helped you after starting the job, what would that be? And Ali, I can see that you've added in here that the best thing you said that you ever did was build a website in your free time. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for me, like I just mentioned in that comment that for me, the best way that I find I learn is actually doing something. So reading a guide on like how to build a website, that while you can pick up some skills, for me, it's like physically doing it myself. And then as part of that, I learned that like my knowledge completely snowballed as part of that. Okay, I built a website, but then I needed to deploy it. So I started learning about AWS for hosting a website, everything that's involved in that, SSL, sort of security certificates. It's just like once you actually do something yourself, I find you just learn a lot more. So that's what I'd suggest, like actually doing something rather than reading a few like blog posts or something.
Yes, because I can see another question in there about creating a portfolio as well, to show what you can do. Because if you're self-taught with online courses and no actual work experience, but I'm assuming there that ties in with, you know, if you start working on some projects and you can share that and say, you know, this is what I can actually do, would be a great place to start. And also, I suppose, just to test the water on what you're good at and what you're going to enjoy or don't want to continue with as well.
Yeah, I'd also reiterate what Kate said earlier. Hackathons are a great way to start, because you also, it's not just you learning by yourself. You do have that small community with you as well, which, yeah, really, really helpful, I think.
Yes. Have you all attended hackathons before? Ali, have you been to a hackathon?
No, I haven't actually. No, I've never done one, but it does interest me. Might have to.
Yes, I suppose it's finding the right topic, isn't it, and the right group to attend.
But the thing about a hackathon is that it's such a low risk and low commitment way to dip your toe into something. So even if you're not sure about it, like the worst case scenario, you lose 24 hours and you get pizza. And the best case scenario is you open a whole new avenue of something that might really excite you and you might not have known existed. And like a lot of events in hackathons, there's the main topic, but then there's also the side conversations that you have with people when you find out their paths and you find out what excites them about their career, and you make connections, and that's that kind of cultural and social capital that as a new starter you don't always get, and is actually really valuable to make you feel comfortable in the industry and to help you along.
Yes, absolutely. And I suppose as well, it's juggling all of those things and learning and everything else that is going on in your day job as well. Because I can see another great question in here about I worry that I will forget everything I have learned as I'm taking a long time to go through my course, and this lady is juggling motherhood with work. Is that natural? Is that something that we've all felt when studying, that it's difficult to try and learn something in addition to your normal day job?
I have 2 words: stack overflow. But like every engineer I know is on Stack Overflow every day. It's not, there's never a closed book exam in programming. You learn principles and you learn the kinds of things that can be done. You learn how to find the answers to questions.
Yes. And
But
it sounds absolutely natural to think that, how can you sit down and take a course and expect to know everything? But it just sounds, it's a learning curve, and once you take on a role like that, it's something that you learn and update as you go.
Yeah, I'd also say for me, it was a case of learning what to Google as opposed to actually learning the answer.
Yes.
One thing about juggling coding and motherhood that is incredibly rewarding is having my little girl perch on the edge of my chair and peek over the edge of it and start to get interested. And I work in iOS, and there's the Worldwide Developer Conference, and it's actually become a family event that the kids will watch it with me. And in that way, it's very compatible with children because you make a tangible product. And I know some people whose jobs are very, very separate to their families. It's just something that they do far away. And with coding, like I did this thing and it just made her laugh and laugh. So I work for Marks and Spencer's on the app, and I hacked the app to make it say her name all over in crazy places. And it took me like 5 minutes to do. And she just thought I was magic. She was terrified that I'd put it into production with her name on it. And it's like sometimes the big can be overwhelming, but if you can, like, in the immediate, focus on like that website you want to deploy, that product that you want to make, that thing that's going to make your kid laugh, that's what keeps you pushing along the road.
Yes, absolutely. We're running out of time, so is there any more advice or any sort of wrap up, a short summary that you'd like to share with our community today?
I've been trying to answer some of these questions, but I don't mind if is there a way we can reply to these afterwards?
We can, yes. So we will share this recording on SheCanCode.io, and we will send it out to our attendees as well, so we can pull these questions and answer the rest and add them onto the post there. So don't worry about that. Yeah,
I guess in summary from me, I would just say, although it does seem scary to try and transition like to a new role, now's probably the best time. I wouldn't sort of dwell on it too much. It is a big decision, and you will get people that are saying, like, you sure this is the right thing? And you can't just go into it sort of blindly, but if it's something you're really interested in, then it's going to work for you, I'd say. Just make sure you're getting the right advice from people, but if you're really passionate about it, I'm sure it's going to work for you.
Yes, absolutely. Ailish, any last thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, I think Alistair summed it up pretty well there. Probably just have the confidence. If you're somebody who's inclined to enjoy new things and work hard and put the effort in, if you're interested in it, then you will excel. And like I said before, tech is so wide and varied. You will find something that you like.
Yes, and Kate, any last words from you? Any last advice you'd like to share?
Well, technology is the future. It's a huge part of the modern world. And I genuinely believe that diversity is important, and it's important for every kind of person to have a stake in technology and to have a seat at the table when decisions are made, when things are done. And when I have days when I think I'm taking too long to learn, or I'm needing too much flexibility, or I'm too old or too pressured, I actually remember that I actually believe that it's important that there are all kinds of people in technology, and that by being here, I'm adding something to the industry, and I'm creating, opening doors for future generations.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. We have just run out of time, but thank you so much, Ali, Kate and Ailish, for joining us. As mentioned, we will follow up with a post and on SheCanCode.io, where you'll find lots of other content as well to help you with your career transition. And we will pull a list of these questions and make sure that we answer some more for you as well. But thank you so much to our speakers for joining us today. It's been a really popular event and a popular conversation. So thank you all, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I will speak to our panel very soon. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.